Hi everybody, welcome back. Happy Friday. I'm Katie and this is Katie's Critter Corner. And today we're bringing you a less formal video. So you're gonna get to sit down with us and pretty much just listen to us chat about all of our core values, how we got to be where we are, and how our clinic kind of works and runs, because there are so many moving components. Mostly all of them are in Dr. Andrea's head. So we really hope that you enjoy this kind of format, because we really want you guys to know who we are and how we got here. So this first part, we're really going to just talk about how Dr. Andrea got to where she is. Yeah, how her brain works and really how she got to where she is.
And in my defense, I made a funny face because her dogs were jumping against the door.
They're terrible.
So if you hear that, that's what it is.
But you guys are used to that. At least Kitty's not out licking his privates.
Yes. So, first I want to say this is something that I've wanted to do for a while in my head, because I really think as time has gone on, I think I and us have a lot that we can impact our community with, the veterinary community. And so when I've gone to veterinary conferences or talked, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I know this stuff and I've thought this stuff, and maybe there is a certain level that I should be sharing it.
We literally go to conferences and say, we are already doing this. We're already thinking this. So it's really important for us now to share it with you guys, because we felt it for so long.
Yeah, but like for me, it makes me uncomfortable because I never have thought of myself as that type of person. So I need people like Katie in my life to bring this out of me. And then also, you know, when we were prepping for this video, one of the reasons we wanted to do this is we went to BMX, we saw Adam and Walter there, and we, Dr. Christman, and we literally asked them what they thought. And so hopefully they weren't just like egging us on, but they didn't think our ideas were horrible.
We did it for you.
Yeah, so we decided that's what we're doing. We're talking to them in this video in the professional world. That's, you know, we're picturing you behind there, guys. But we have our little shrine in our head to All-Star Veterinary Clinic, because they're just the best. So hopefully if you guys, you three, like what we're saying, that would mean the world to us, because what you guys are saying really gives us the confidence and inspiration to try to do this, because it's really out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. So tell them, how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so part of the problem with me is my brain doesn't stop. It doesn't mean I'm like the smartest person in the world. I don't mean it like that. It just goes really fast all the time and swirls and whirls and bounces and jumps.
If you don't have a notebook, you can't keep up with her. I say that.
And I know like one of my talents in this world is coming up with ideas and concepts. And so that's another thing. So sorry, try to follow along. I have a lot of trouble just focusing it. But we talked about it. We wanted to go back to, rather than just jumping into how some of our core values really fit into how it impacts the veterinary community, which later we'll focus on our empowering and growing core value and our individualized gold standards, which, you know, the veterinary community will hear that and think that applies to the treatment plans, but we're actually talking about people too. Katie's like, no, we need more information. How it goes back, where did this all start?
I want to know about when you met Dr. Brad.
Dr. Brad, yes, everyone wants to know that.
Everybody wants to know that.
So if you don't know Dr. Brad's brain works like mine. It's bouncing and whirling and going crazy, and people would get really frustrated if Brad and I were in a conversation, because we would be all over the place and we'd be following each other, but no one else would.
And at the end you say, what just happened?
It makes total sense to me. And you guys, like Katie would attest, when she first started trying to keep up with Brad back in treatment, just bouncing everywhere. So the first time I met Dr. Brad was when I was in veterinary school. I went to veterinary school at Ohio State, as Brad did, years before me. And my friends dragged me to a networking event and for pizza, because we want free pizza. And I am not a Southern Pittsburgher. I know everyone wants me to be from Washpah, but I'm actually from North Allegheny, Wexford, PA. That's where I grew up. That's where I still live. And I commute down every day. Yes, I go over a bridge. It is totally fine. Unfortunately for all the people I work with though, that hour in the car is my brain. I come in like, they always make jokes that vets go to CE conferences and they come back and they're like, ideas. This is what I do every day. To them every day. And they get mad. So anyway, so we went to this pizza, and I had a t-shirt that I got from Rose Garden Lost and Found, which is in Peters Township. I don't even remember why I was there. and it was a Little Dribblers basketball t-shirt. I don't even know if that's still a thing in Peters Township.
Did he
Peters
think you were
Township
currently
Little Dribblers.
playing Little Dribblers?
I'm not sure, but it seriously was like, I think it's like a 10-year-old breed. Another thing, if you can't tell by this couch, I have a Pomeranian. I'm very much like them in size and attitude, and so the Little Dribbler shirt fit. And he goes, I didn't know it was Brad at the time. It didn't even occur to me until years later that this had to have been Brad, because Brad's very unique too. He's like,
Yeah.
You're from Peters Township? And I was like, no. And I like just walked away, and he was all excited, and I was just like, what are you talking about, dude? And then years later, my last year at vet school, I sent out resumes to a whole bunch of clinics. What I did, this actually has to do with Brad too, this is my dad's idea. What I did was I purchased a marketing listserv of veterinary clinics, because that's why people they get you to sign up for stuff, is to make these marketing lists.
Yeah.
And so I purchased one of veterinary clinics. It comes in Excel spreadsheet, so I organized it by zip code. And I was able to like target Pittsburgh, and then my brother lives in Bloomsburg, so I targeted that one as well. And I typed up a cover letter, and then with Excel, you just hit like dear, and then it will import like the doctor's name, and I was able to get like 100 names just printed out like that on these personalized letters, and I sent them to all these clinics with my resume. And so when I was looking for a job, I had lined up a whole bunch of people who were interested, because Pittsburgh doesn't get a lot of veterinary new grads since we don't have a veterinary school. And Brad was someone who was not looking for a current employee, but because it was from Ohio State and Brad loves people, he reached out to me to help guide me find a job in Pittsburgh. So the second time I spoken to Brad, he called me out of the blue, and I knew like Pleasant Valley just from the website was kind of a big clinic. So I was driving my friends to a restaurant, and I was talking to Brad the whole way there. They got out of the car, they went to the restaurant. I talked to Brad the whole time in the parking lot.
This is not even surprising now. Like,
especially with Brad. I can't say that I talked a lot, because if you first meet me, I'm actually quite shy and quiet. But it was the entire thing, and I didn't get any dinner. I didn't get in the restaurant. So that was the second time I talked to Brad, and we set up to meet while I was in town for interviews. Just again to like, he's like, oh, I can guide you. I just want to get to know you, so you have these people, and you know, we do some of the Ohio State stuff. So I said, okay. So then the first time I met him in person was at the Bean Curd. Again, I thought it was gonna be like an hour. 3 hours later, we're still sitting at the Bean Curd, talking. I remember one of the things he asked me about why I sent him a letter, and I told him about the listserv, because my dad and Brad.
You didn't tell him about the Little Dribbler shirt at that point in time?
No, I didn't realize it until like 2 years working with Brad. I was like, wait a second, I totally forgot about this pizza event. I forget why it came in my head one day, and I was like, that must have been Brad. Like, who else would that have been in from Peters Township? But Brad and my dad are pretty similar. My dad and my mom own a small business, so the stuff Brad talked to me about was stuff I grew up with.
Well, what did he talk to you about?
Well, so I remember we talked about how I did the listserv, and he thought that was genius. We talked about some of the hiring process things, which I won't go on here. And then I remember we talked about some books. He mentioned a book, and my dad had just read it. And he's like, oh my God, you know this book? And I hadn't read it, and I told him that. It's just like my dad, when he gets into something, he tells you the entire thing. So one of the books was Black Swan, which I still have not read, which is about how like most ideas grow out of failed ideas. So like you think the good idea, like they just got there, but there's 100 failed ideas behind it before you get to that one. And then Freakonomics, which I did eventually read. I enjoyed that and the podcast. And so like Brad and I just have very similar crazy wavelengths in that way. And so at that point, Brad, this was like a month until I had to do my externship. And again, I'm actually quite shy before you meet me. And he's like, well, you must have your externship set up. And I was like, no, I don't, because I was too embarrassed to call any clinics and be like, can I come? So I fibbed. He's like, you must already have it. I go, well, I have some time. One of my externships my mom got for me because she was getting changed in the YMCA bathroom. And Dr. Wirtz, Mr. and Mrs. Dr. Wirtz, they're a husband-wife team up at Allegheny North, I think they call it. She went to the YMCA, so my mom got me set up there. And then Dr. Brad, I was like, no. And Brad was like, oh, well, okay, like, why don't you, I was like, I think I have some time. Yeah, I could budget that in. I played it like I had this whole setup.
Smart move.
Yeah, because I was too shy to call anyone. And so then I went to Brad a couple weeks later for my externship, straight from Columbus, had not even gotten home yet. My entire car was packed in the parking lot. Did 2 weeks externship and still just jived with Brad. So he was like, well, you jive. And that's what Brad does, is he likes to hire when people jive. He doesn't like to be desperate. We want to, and so that's what that worked out.
If it's the right person, we're always looking. So.
Yep, and then from there, people would get worried when Brad and I would get together and have ideas going.
It's like you guys were just meant to work together.
It's my husband would get exhausted sometimes when he'd hear us like at dinner or something talking.
So did you always see yourself at this spot, or did you think that you would be somewhere else?
Are you talking about Pleasant Valley or where I am at Pleasant Valley?
You, yourself. Like, is this where you always saw yourself?
No, I didn't really know what I thought. So when I was in vet school, I always considered owning a veterinary clinic. Again, my parents owned one, and I always liked the idea of managing that type of stuff. But I didn't always love the idea of starting a business. That kind of freaked me out, like all the taxes and structure and all the legalist stuff. That freaks me out still to this day. But I always kind of thought about it. When I started at Pleasant Valley, they always say don't start where you want to end up. And I remember thinking at some point, like, oh man, what am I supposed to do? Like, you're supposed to slowly move up in your jobs. And I remember being like, where else am I going to go? I kind of love it here. Like, am I going to work here for like the rest of my life? That kind of freaked me out, but I also didn't know what to do with it. But like when I was in vet school, I knew I wasn't always going to like to just be a doctor. And I don't mean it that way, but just to be only doing appointments. I knew that wasn't going to be my glory. That wasn't what I was going to be good at, because I saw these people around me who were just brilliant all the time.
Didn't you say something to Shelly in your interview about like how you don't like to be in the spotlight? You like to be.
I like to support people. I like to. I'm very good at seeing ideas, and I'm very good somehow at seeing what they're good at and their potential. And so what I like to do is help the people get to their potential faster. I never want to take credit for it, because I'm not doing anything. I just want to support them and
she
get
will
them there.
Not let up.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I'm a dog with a bone when it comes to it. If I see potential in you, I am relentless.
Like, I mean, for example, I didn't even, like, I really truly never saw myself doing social media. I never saw myself doing videos, photography.
She hated me for a while because of this.
The website, like, I really never pictured myself doing any of that. But she's like, you're good at this, so we're going to make this happen. And I was like, I don't think about it. And then it was, no, you're going to do this because you're good at this.
I really still think a great business venture for you would be that you would have a whole closet of different clothes and doing the family photos where you would dress us and get us, all situated and then take beautiful photos, and then we'd give the clothes back to you for the next group. But I wish one day that's when we'll get the Ruby Lollipop videos. But,
that's right.
Yes, I am relentless to a fault. People get upset with me because they think I'm criticizing them, but it's not that at all. It's like, oh my gosh, like I get so excited when I like see a sparkle in somebody.
And she's done this to every single one of us at this clinic. Like, we all have stepped into new roles, and that really plays into our
individualized standards.
Our core values, and really how we came up with that, because that is one thing that I can say about this place is that we are constantly wanting to take people's talents and move forward with them. Like, every single person here, they started out with one task or one job, and now we have like 5 on our plate, and it's just most of it is, it's like our passion, stuff that we really enjoy doing.
Yeah, and like that's really like that's what gets me like really passionate, is I love seeing people do well.
And do you think that's what keeps people in this field?
I would hope so. So that's where, again, like where we think some of these ideas go to try to keep veterinary medicine healthy, and not one more vet. Yeah. So this is where people like Adam, who have Dr. Adam, who has the Big Ear Bellowing, and Walter, and All-Star. It's where I hope you hear us. So, you guys were, one of you was talking about your VIP people, and we're sitting there at the MX, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're talking about this. We just call it individualized gold standards. And then Shannon sent me a wonderful podcast that's popular. I forget which one. They were talking about standard of care and how we shouldn't judge standard of care on A versus B, and this is what we talk about. And we talk about it when it comes to the treatment plans, right? Individualized gold standards. And I've said this for a decade. I have my 2 cats, Douglas and Petey, the same age. And Douglas could not handle sub-Q fluids. He was a terrible 2 toddler baby, bottle baby cat. And Petey was a sweet orange boy. And so I was able to do fluids on Petey every day. And I didn't love Doug because individualized gold standards, I was making Douglas miserable by doing them, and I was helping Petey by doing them. And so that's where that started, that idea. And that's Brad always had that idea. Individualized gold standards for his clients. It's not lesser medicine, it's just what fits them better. And then that idea grew to, man, if I treat the clients well with their individualized gold standards, whether it's that they have arthritis in their hands and they can't squeeze the bag, money, car trouble, children, the individualized gold standard has to apply to them too. And if we create a good individualized gold standard for them, each plan, whether it's different for each of their pets or each of their parts of their life, then their future pets will get better care. And that means better care long term, long game. We're always playing the long game.
Well, this makes me think of those circles that you guys have referenced in our meetings, like the client, the patient, the staff.
Yeah, I
that
got that.
All plays a
I got that from Good to Great, the book. I believe it was that book. And it's a Venn diagram. And that idea came to me at some point when I was reading that years ago. And so if you have a circle that's staff, and a circle that's clients, and a circle that's pets, our goal with our individualized plans, this was before our core values, before we had those 3 words, individualized gold standards. Our goal overall is to hit the middle of that target every time. But we can't hit it every time because sometimes there's circumstances. Sometimes Douglas won't let you do the sub-Q fluids. Sometimes that mom can't handle the fluids at home. And I say that because I was that mom when my pets were dying. And so there are times that we might favor the client a little bit more. We might stay a little bit late to help that person. But by helping that person, we help the emergency clinic because we're not sending it to them. And then there are times that we might favor our staff a little bit. So the client who can't pay for the 24-hour care, but their dog needs diuresis, and it's a 200 ml an hour dose because it's a huge dog who ate something toxic. Well, if I make my overnight tech come down every hour to check on that dog, I will not have him, at that time because this was something that literally happened. He won't be there for the next dog because no tech can keep up with that long term. And so yes, I had to turn that rate down for that dog overnight because I was prioritizing my staff. So that way he was there to help the next dog and the next dog. And of course we communicate that with our owners. We ideally would have wanted them to go to the ER, but we sacrificed a little bit for the pet to accommodate the staff and the client. And sometimes it's the pet that we go out for. Sometimes you have to do the block cat surgery for less, right? Sometimes I know Dr. Wells is a big one. Sometimes that cat goes home with him. And he sacrifices
He's
some
amazing
of his...
with that.
Yes.
He literally just called a client a few weeks ago to do that. He said, I won't sleep tonight if I know this cat is here. Can I please take it home? And the client was so grateful. They said they've never had someone or doctor care to that extent. So that's something that we don't take lightly.
And again, it's so sweet of Dr. Wilson, it is, but it is somewhat selfish just because we can't sleep at night, right?
Yeah.
But I can't have, then we have to tell Dr. Wells, you cannot do that all the time because then I won't have Dr. Wells in 10 years.
That's true.
I want Dr. Wells in 10 years. I want you to take your time off because I want you to stay the long game. We're investing in the long game.
And we want him to stay who he is, and we want him to stay as amazing as he is.
So once we started thinking in that way, when I started thinking that it was beyond the pets into our staff, then I started thinking, well, how can we keep our staff here? And it started easy. I was doing the schedule, and it's like, wait a second. Dr. Brad hates working July 4th. He hates being on call July 4th because he likes to go out to Teak Creek with his family. But he doesn't mind being on call Christmas Eve because he's right there, and his kids go to bed early because of Santa. And so why would Dr. Brad be on call July 4th When I don't care about July 4th. Doesn't make sense. So then we start talking about individualized gold standards with our staff, because usually if you look at the whole group, hey, I'm willing to sacrifice a little here so I can get up here.
Yeah, we all have different needs.
Exactly. They usually complement each other. You know, if you can't wake up early and you're a night bird, well, you're working the night shift, where I like to be up early. So then I started thinking about it as staff, just simple things like staffing, or you like dentals and you like surgery. Cool, everyone has to do the same job and be able to do it, but we're going to prioritize. And then we started seeing that our staff was healthier overall. So sometimes we think, but that is like, okay, well, like, if we keep doing that, how can we make that as part of one more vet? And how can we keep people in the clinic? And we've had so many babies. So like, making it so the moms are able to work, working around their schedules, giving them other outlets. So everyone loves their dogs and cats at veterinary medicine, but we all also love different things.
Yeah.
I love management. Katie loves social media. So if we start tapping into, Dr. Mike loves to teach.
That's a big one. Dr. Mike's come a long way.
Absolutely. Dr. Mike loves to teach. And when you get him in that teaching mode, he just is so zoned in.
You guys know he's emotional. It's something that he always says if he was not a veterinarian, he'd be a teacher. He loves to teach. He loves to educate.
He's good at it. And so if we started tapping in and making these individualized gold standards for each staff member, yes, I might lose you for a few hours a week, but if I make up for it by keeping you on for 10 years, that you wouldn't have been in veterinary medicine because we get burned out, then that's 10 years of Katie at 25 hours a week versus 1 year of Katie at 40 hours
I mean,
a week.
like, not to brag on the clinic, but most of our employees have been here for a very long time. I mean, I'm coming up on 7 years. Heidi's about to hit 10 years. Madison, 10 years. Oh my gosh. I mean, from our reception staff, Jen, I mean,
20 years.
Susan. Oh my God, Susan like opened the place.
Yes,
so
yes, she did.
when you
Dr. Jones,
Dr. Oh my gosh, Dr. Jones.
80s, baby.
She's here 1 to 2 days. Well, it's 1 day a week now.
Yep.
I remember when it was 2 days. That feels like
Forever ago.
Yeah,
So then I started thinking about, like, well, we're talking about how do we keep staff in the veterinary space? Like, why do we lose them? Well, we need to make their jobs more passionate. We all can only do so many rabies shots, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So let's start tapping into all these natural things, and how can that enhance the veterinary world? And so that goes into things like individualized gold standards and empowering and growing, which is another one of our core values. Yes, we want to empower and grow our client for their education. And let's do that by having Dr. Mike do lectures. And if Dr. Mike does lectures to teach our clients, then we're empowering him to do what he loves. He's loving it. He's reinvigorated with the veterinary world. And then our clients know more.
And what I always say is if a client knows better, they will generally do better. And oftentimes it's just that education. How many times do we have people say, well, I never knew that, and nobody ever told me that before. So for us, it's if they know better, they do better. So we really strive to do that, empowering, growing, teaching. It's really important.
All comes then back to the pet care. Then your pets get better care. And that's also why, when we talk about these things, then I start thinking, okay, well, what about the community? What about, and we threw out the term last time, we talked integrative and holistic medicine. And I'm not talking about actual medicine. I'm talking about integrating each other and holistic approach. WH, holistic approach for the community. If I do well and I take on just the amount I can, not too much, but just that line, and I see that urgent care, and I can squeeze that emergency in. If I can do that euthanasia, and I can save that from the ER clinic, so the ER clinic is there for the dogs who need foreign body surgery at 2 in the morning, and I can take a little burden off them, and the other clinic can take a little burden off them. If we can take the burden off them because they know to call me at 8 a.m. when their cat's straining in the litter box and not waiting until it's vomiting the next day and has to go to the ER, then that's a holistic approach on the community, and the ERs can stay there longer. The people who work in the ERs won't burn out as quickly, and they're going to be there for us if we help them out. It's a give and take. If I do well, the whole does well. The whole does well, I do well. And then same with the education. That's why we don't care who watches Dr. Mike's lectures. That's why we put it out there. I don't care who comes.
Anybody can come. You don't even have to be a client.
You don't have to be a client. You can be a client at another clinic.
We love when a client comes.
I don't even need you to become our client. All I know is if you learn, your dog gets care. If your dog gets care, the veterinary community is healthier. If the veterinary community is healthier, my clinic is healthier. If our clinic is healthier, then our pets get more care. and so on and so forth. And the other part of holistic is just our whole life. You know, we talk about that too. While we have to support each other at work, you become who you surround yourself with. And whether you like it or not, you're 40 hours a week with the people you work with. 40 hours, that's more than my husband. So if Katie is complaining about her husband all day long, it's been shown that it will worsen my marriage, because then I'll want to naturally complain about my husband. If my son is not doing well and misbehaving and acting up, then it's going to affect Katie's parenting. If Katie makes me in a bad mood at work, I'm going to take it home to my kids. Dang, Katie matters to my kids whether she meets them ever or not.
Yeah.
It's true. The clients do, the community does, the ER does. So like we really have to look. And so as a byproduct of the whole thing, not one more vet, if we are healthier as a whole and as an individual, and we think about our effect on the community, that spreads out, then hopefully not one more vet as a byproduct would come down.
I mean, when you think about it, the veterinary community as a whole is small.
It is.
We're not a big community. I mean, people just don't last. So this is something we're really passionate about, is trying to keep people here. And that's why our clinic, we really are empowering and growing people to do and follow what their dreams and their passions are.
And I want to reiterate that this conversation, all of the things we're talking about can go to whatever level you want it to apply. Whether that's in the one exam room with the dog or the cat, whether it's to the client, whether it's your coworker, or whether it's the whole community. But today, and I'd love to talk about each level, but our main goal today, because of our inspirations of Dr. Adam and Walter and All-Star Veterinary Clinic, we're talking to you guys, and I hope everyone else hears this, and we really want to hear if you think we are nutballs or if we're on to something. So Katie wants us to now go into our core values a little bit more. I would like to start by saying how we got there. And so I was part of putting them into words, but I really want to say, like, Dr. Brad always felt these. And as Katie asked, like, how did, in our last video, like, Brad and I were very similar in believing in these kind of ideas.
But getting them to narrow it down is...
And into words.
That's
the hardest.
It's
the hardest thing. I have these thoughts in my brain, but trying to get them narrowed down.
And you needed the Shannon and the Knox and all of them to be like,
and
we're
also,
going to write them down.
Most of the things I've stolen and developed over time too. So, from podcasts and books, Daniel Tiger, parenting books, vet conferences, any type of book, marriage books, counseling books. They just kind of all amalgamated, because I just feel like our core values, what they stand for is just life, though they do apply to our business. And so again, right now we're talking about how they apply to our business and how they apply to the veterinary community. So that's why we're talking about them as a whole. But if you guys would like to hear videos on how they apply to more specific things, we'd love to talk about it. And please let us know.
Yeah, I always say, please drop a comment or message us.
Dr. Adam and Walter, this is for you guys, and I'll start you.
Yes. So I know we already touched on Empower Growing and our individualized gold standards, but there are other core values. So which one is your favorite? Other than those two, because I already know those two are like your favorite.
Well, I don't know if those are my favorite. It's just like those were the ones that they're at the end of our list, because the others kind of naturally go to there.
Because you would hope if you're going to be in this field, you're all of those things.
Yeah, but I think again in life, like, the people you surround yourself with, you should want them to grow. You should want them to do better, even if that means they're leaving you, right? Same with parenting. Like, you want your kids to grow up so they can leave you, and you want to support them to be the best kid they can be. But my kid is amazing, that I think so, and they both are, but my one is the one in school, so he's the one I get feedback on. People are like, oh, you do such a good job as a parent. I'm like, no, my kid is just who he is. Like, I'm just there to support his growth, right? And so that's how I feel about staff too. So I hope when people move on from Pleasant Valley or clients or other, it's that they're doing better, right? And that's what we hope for. So even when people think it doesn't bother me when they find something better, because that's what we want. We want to be a stepping stone or a place to grow. I don't care, as long as people are doing better. Individualized gold standards, like I said, the more passionate people are, the better, the happier they are, the better care. Like when you get your passion, everything else follows.
I feel that.
I think one that resonates with me a lot is the give grace, because I've learned that so much over the years, and I hate it when people use that as a power word. But when I've felt it, it's been a big deal, and there's been some major moments in my life where it's been felt. I know I've thought when I've been in a Starbucks a few times when I was in a down part of my life, and it just felt like the barista like actually could tell and would say like good morning and actually mean it. I feel that even though it wasn't very open at that time. I've learned it in a hard way, in a good way, hard way. But for example, the story is when my son got sick. So my son had a tumor in his brain that was diagnosed on emergency. So I went to work at 6 in the morning, drove home at 1 to pick up my son to take him to the emergency clinic because he was 3 and he had a weird headache. Funny thing, I told Dr. Mike before I left, I said, "What, my kid has a brain tumor?" And he said, "Don't think that way," but I kind of knew. So we drove him down to the hospital and the ER, and they did the MRI. They found the brain tumor, and he had brain swelling, so he was critical. He just wasn't showing it yet. So they immediately, I remember going, "Well, what are you thinking? Like, are we going to do the surgery on Monday? I have to like figure out like my schedule," not knowing. They're like, "No, we're like doing it." I was like, "Oh, he's that kind of emergency." Because my kid was just sitting there like William, just being like, he was catcalling all the nurses because he couldn't talk, so you go to get them to come over to him, because that's how I call the cats. So they anesthetized him at midnight-ish to put the stent in. And we were up all night, and at 4 in the morning, they weren't planning on doing surgery yet. He was intubated and he was anesthetized for the foreseeable future. So they needed to do a long MRI. So they had to chart out his brain tumor and like do the spinal to make sure it wasn't spread anywhere. And it was gonna be like a 2.5 hour MRI. So they said, he's gone, like he's not in the room. He's in the MRI for like 2.5 hours, go home. Because I was still in my Pleasant Valley scrubs. And we luckily lived pretty close to the hospital. So we went home, fed the cats, got the dog to my mom's house, got our bags. And at this point it was 6 the next morning. So I was now up 24 hours at minimum. I was also pregnant. And I drove back to the hospital. And when we were getting on the merge ramp, it's a hill, and there was a semi truck, and then there's like 2 merges, and we're behind the semi, and this car sped up next to us, and I thought he was going to cut us off, but he actually sped up on the shoulder and cut the semi off. And I was like, oh my gosh, like he has no idea what he did. Now, granted, I have no idea where that guy was going. Maybe he was in an emergency situation, but what I was thinking is like that guy's might be frustrated that we're all going too slow because of the semi. But like, he needs to give some grace. Like, he has no idea how endangering he is. I'm driving when I shouldn't be driving because I've been up for 24 hours. On my way to hopefully get back to the hospital before they take my kid into brain surgery. And that's when I realized, like, one of the big things, like, you cannot judge anybody. You have no idea what they're going through in that moment of time. You have no clue.
That's scary.
It is, and like when someone comes in and they have a grumpy face on, you have no idea why they have the grumpy face on. They might just be grumpy. They might have gas pains. I had one client who their soon-to-be ex-husband just posted something awful online. The tech came out. They're like, she's being really quiet, and I walk in and she's crying. Right?
I remember that.
Yeah. So like, give grace is a huge one, and I also just don't think it's worth anything else. Like, unless I know better, why am I going to get angry?
And I think to go along with that, I mean, be kind.
Yeah, and that's what, be kind and be honest, be fair.
Be fair.
You don't know, and I think in veterinary medicine and in the life, it's so addictive to get, it's so addictive to latch onto the negatives. That's the
Get
easy
caught up
hit.
in the toxicity.
Yeah, it's so easy. That's why reality shows are great. That's why Fox News, CNN, CNBC, that's why people like those shows too, is it is a natural addictive hit for us, where grace is a muscle that's practiced in being kind. And worst case, the person's a jerk, right? Like, maybe they are a true jerk, but I'm telling you, if they're a jerk with you, they're just miserable in life. Like, everywhere they go, they get bad service. That'd be really annoying. If you thought you got bad service everywhere you went. So one of our big core values is give grace, and that's also then contributes to our individualized gold standards, where maybe your doctor's late every morning, but you don't know that they wake up with horrible migraines. So if you give grace and talk to them and are fair and honest and kind, which are more of our core values, you can make
Give
it
your best.
And then they might be giving their best, and really you need an individualized gold standard, which is they don't work morning shifts, they work night shifts,
Yep.
right? And
That's
then we can keep people back in the field longer because they're not going to burn out, because you're not going to fire them and write them up, and I'm not going to be angry that they're late every day.
I mean, you guys did that for me. I mean,
You did?
I have a zoo. This is nothing
Okay.
new. And I struggled to be on time. I was consistently like 5 to 7 minutes late every day.
That's true, you were.
And
But you're talking.
And you want me to function, don't you? So they sat me down and they said, Katie, this is the problem. We need to do something about it. And we did. And Shannon was like, okay, so what about you have to be here on time for this and this, but on your other days and you're doing media, like come in at 10. Does that work? And I'm like, what other place would do this? A place who cares about keeping people here. A place that wants to see us do our best. I mean, that's just, and that keeps me accountable to be fair and to be kind and to be honest and to do all those other things, because you don't find, I think, what we built anywhere else.
But I think we should, because again,
you want to see it in VetMed.
I want to see it in life, because then people can grow and win. We're all different. And I think that's something that gets people hard with me too. We talked about in the last video when I like see that little like glimmer and I'm like, why are you not doing this? You need to do this more. And they think I'm insulting them by saying they shouldn't be in dentals, they should be over there, but it's because they're like fantastic at that. They're good at dentals, but they're fantastic at that. I think what also frustrates people is, and it's a really important thing, is you have to get to the root of the problem. Like it was a Malcolm Gladwell book, and he was talking about something about Japanese car makers, but basically it's a whole thing of a whole long story. You have to get to the root of the problem. So rather than just getting mad at the person for coming in late, why don't you just sit down and talk to them and find out why? Because maybe the solution is something easy.
Yeah.
Something easy.
I feel like our solution for me was easy.
Exactly.
It made sense.
Once I know what the problem is, you got to fix the problem. You don't want to band-aid the problem. And that's the same with veterinary, right? We want to prevent care. We want to do preventative care. We don't want to be doing the back work. You have to figure out the root of the problem, or you're just band-aiding it. And so to keep everyone happy and healthy, and as a clinic, usually if you find the root of the problem, it goes from there. But that is with grace. People have to feel safe, that they can be honest. They have to, everyone has to give their best. So you do have to be protective of your group, because you'll have people who can come in and take advantage. Selfish people can come and wreck it pretty quickly. But that's why everyone has to give their best. And we don't say be the best. It's give their best every different day. You know, when I was a new mom the second time, I went through a really hard year. My best was different than it is right now, and it was different than it was 2 years ago.
My best looks different from week to week.
But exactly, in a day to day, and so give your best. That also helps with veterinary medicine. We're all perfectionists. You think you have to be the best. You think you have to be perfect. No, you just have to give your best that day. Did you give your best? Yeah. Okay. Well, sucks that it didn't go as well as we wanted to, but
that's a hard concept to really let yourself live by, though.
It is. I mean, I think that's in our health too. Like, it's hard to forgive yourself for that. And that's the thing too. You have to give yourself grace. You can't. These core values, like I said, they go to every level. It goes to the individual level. You have to be fair to yourself. You can't. Sorry that you were late once. It's not your fault that there was a traffic jam. Be fair. Give yourself grace. You gave your best to get there that day. It happens, right? And so I think that also is something super important when it comes to veterinary medicine and keeping us all healthy. So sorry, that was touching on a whole bunch of core values where we're supposed to talk about my favorite, which is give grace.
Well, I think we touched on them all.
Did we? Give respect. Oh, be fair, be honest. I think that one goes for itself again. Whether it's on the patient side, be fair, be honest. Tell the client, honestly what's going on with their pet.
Yeah, I mean, how many times a day do you get asked, what would you do if this was your pet?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, she's hungry, Katie. You can tell she's hungry because she's nibbling at me. When it comes to, vetmen as a whole, being fair and being honest with each other, don't let things brew. Don't let the abscess fester. Just sit down and talk about it. And again, usually it's not what you think the problem is. And so when we nitpick each other in the clinics, we have to be fair and be honest to each other. So I think that's the only one that we really didn't hit too high on. But
Yeah, I mean, all of this hopefully is going to keep us all together as one veterinary community. And we will put some links for the Not One More Vet movement. It's something we really, really, really want to see get better in this community.